Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over some severe storms which are going to be heading into Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas over the next couple of days. We already have a slight risk out for western Texas for today. We'll be reviewing that and also timing out these storms for you guys. They will be somewhat strong in some areas. It's not going to be a huge event, but we are starting to go into the fall time, so we're not expecting to see too many more of these severe weather events. That's why I wanted to make a video on it, just because this could be one of the final severe weather events that we cover this year, or one of those, since we probably still will have a couple more. So let's get right into it, and let's start off with your current National Weather Service page. Other than a few flood watches in northern New Mexico, we really don't have a lot going on. We have basically no watches or warnings for the rest of the United States, and that even includes Alaska and Hawaii, which also don't have that many watches or warnings currently in place. So it's just going to be a really quiet few days. So we're going to be bouncing around between talking about severe weather, maybe talking about some colder weather in the west, maybe even some warmer weather in the central United States. So over the next couple of days, the video topics will kind of be all over the place, since there's not one big headline story like there normally is. I think probably as we get into the later or mid part of fall, so into mid or late October, it should start to speed up again. But as of right now, again, there's just not a lot going on. Looking at the high temperature for yesterday, we were at 101 degrees in Rio Grande Village, Texas, as well as Falcon Lake, Texas. Again, both of them up to 101. The low temperature was 14 miles west-southwest of McKay, Idaho, where they got down to 4 degrees Fahrenheit, which not including last winter, but this was the coldest temperature that we've seen so far this year, if you were to exclude the winter months. So if we're looking at just the summer months and the fall months, this was the coldest report that we've had in at least I would say 6 months. Probably not 6 months, but probably closer to 5 or 4 months. So it's been a while since we got that far down in terms of the temperatures, and that far below the normal. Also, the highest rainfall report yesterday was 5 inches in Austin, Texas. No snowfall reports yesterday. So let's start talking about the Storm Prediction Center's forecast. We're going to look at for today. You can see that they have a small area of slight risk in southwestern Texas, and then we have that marginal risk which expands through a little bit of New Mexico, western and northern Texas, as well as southern Oklahoma. Main threats are going to be wind and hail. Not really expecting too much in the way of a tornado threat as of today, but still is a possibility and something that you still need to pay attention for. If you do get a tornado warning, of course, just take the necessary precautions to avoid getting injured from that tornado. So here's a look at the simulated radar. We're looking at the NAM 3KM model, which is usually pretty good in these types of high resolution scenarios where you need to kind of see the localized storm paths. So we're going to start off later today, so this would be around 4 p.m. Eastern, or 4 p.m. Central Time today, and you can see that we have some storms starting to brew up into western Texas, and that's going to continue as we get into right around 7 p.m. Central Time today. So it's extending as far north as about Oklahoma City, all the way down to western and southwestern Texas, and these lines of storms will kind of start to clump together a little bit more. So let's move this on. Here would be by 10 p.m. Central Time today, and you can see that we still have some of those storms rolling on through central Oklahoma, still into western Texas. But one thing that we do notice is that as you get into eastern Texas, eastern Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, all of you guys are good for tonight. It's as we get into tomorrow when they might start to head a little bit farther to the east. So we go into the overnight hours of Friday, the storms dissipate, so we're not dealing with as much in Texas for Friday early morning, and we're just gonna have a few scattered showers around the state, but we're not really expecting anything that'll be too profound. One thing that is notable is that we will have rain in New Mexico, so that normally does not happen all that often. They've actually been getting quite a bit of rain compared to normal recently, so Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, they've really been fixing up the drought issues with all the rain they've been getting recently. So they were in a fairly big drought. They were having some issues getting water to those areas, but it looks like now most of those issues are not fully resolved, but they are getting better because they are getting some decent amounts of rainfall. It's not even just a couple inches. It is definitely on the higher end of things compared to what they're used to for those spots. So here would be by Friday morning. This is around 10 in the morning Central Time, and you can see fairly clear. We may have a few scattered showers into Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, but really not a lot going on. It will be raining, most likely a little bit more steady into New Mexico. So those areas, it's going to be less of a thunderstorm event and more of a steady rainfall. And that's how you'll get the bulk of your rain. Now into the afternoon hours of tomorrow is when we're going to start to see the storms kind of revive again. So we're going to see another surge in the severe weather. So this would be as of around 3, or actually this would be 1 p.m. Central Time. And you can see that we do have some of those storms into West Texas. So they are going to be moving on further to the east. They are definitely starting to get going as we get to around 4 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. They're not too awfully severe by this point, but you can definitely tell that by this point, by around 3 or 4 p.m., we do have some amount of convection going on here. We do have something brewing for the evening hours of Friday. So if we move this on to about 7 p.m. Central Time, you can see that we do have some more stronger storms into central Texas and even moving up into Oklahoma. So we will have some lighter to moderate rainfall mixed in with a few heavy batches where we could be dealing with some thunder and lightning as well. Do not be surprised if there's a little bit of hail in some of these. It doesn't look like it's going to be a huge hail producer, but you do need to watch out for that. It looks like even if it were to be some hail, would probably be on the lighter side of things, probably some smaller hail, but still something that you want to at least be aware of and at least pay attention on the radar to spot. So we're not expecting any huge hailstones, but a little bit is possible. Damaging winds, I think, will be more impactful. I don't think the hail not really going to be too, even if there is hail, it's not going to be big enough to really cause an issue. But the damaging winds, we know that if you have saturated ground, you can get the trees to fall down a little bit easier than if you were on unsaturated ground. If you were to be in a drier area, so for example, if you were in the middle of a desert and you had one tree just in the middle of the ground, that is going to need a lot more rain to fall over than if you're in the middle of a hurricane, even if the winds are just 70 miles per hour in both locations and you have a soggy, wet ground and somewhere like coastal Texas, it's going to take a lot less wind speed to really knock down that tree in coastal Texas than it will with that tree in the middle of the desert. It's all because of the saturation of the ground, and that plays a big part. So even if the winds aren't going to be necessarily that high, the amount of rainfall that you saw yesterday, or actually that would be today, going into tomorrow, will cause some issues because of that. So moving this on to 10 p.m. Central Time, you can see we do have some of those storms still boiling up in North Texas. There will be some pockets of heavy rainfall here, and that could cause some issues on the roads when you're driving. So if you get stuck in one of those storms, either try and look at the radar or at least listen to the radio a little bit when you're driving, or before you drive, just to get an idea of where the storms are, and then try and plan your route around those storms. Even if you can't do that, if it's too heavy, if the rain's too heavy, just pull over to the side of the road. It'll be over with in about 5 to 15 minutes. So these aren't going to be prolonged storms. They're going to be quick ones. So even if you have to pull over for a little bit, not going to be a huge deal. Those storms continue to roll on further to the east, but they are weaker by this point. And as we get into Saturday morning, they will start to dissipate. So here's a look at the total rainfall. It looks like a little bit of a mess, but that's just because of how localized this model gets. We're looking at 1 to 2 inches in the yellow color, 2 to 5, or actually 2 to 3 inches in the red. We're looking at 3 to 4 in the brown, 4 to 6 in this kind of purple color, and then in the pink, that's where we're looking at 6 to 10 inches. So you can see we have a little band of quite heavy rainfall into central and actually more of western and northern Texas. So right along this band right here, northwest of Austin, Texas, northwest of Dallas, Texas as well. So northwest of that main corridor of big cities, that's where you're going to have most of that rainfall. And that also extends all the way up into eastern Oklahoma and then also into southern Missouri as well. So not as much if you live down in Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, eastern Texas, but especially for central Texas, eastern Oklahoma, southern Missouri, some of these areas within this band right here could be dealing with up to 4 to 6 inches of rain with localized higher amounts. Here's the CAPE values, the convective available potential energy. It's basically just showing you how much energy is available at any one given point. And you can see that we do have quite a bit available for this afternoon in much of central and western Texas. So that's going to help those storms fire up. And if we look at for tomorrow even, we still have ample amounts of CAPE. We have about 1 to 2,000 joules per kilogram, which is well above what you would need to get a thunderstorm event this time of year. High temperatures are also going to be rather high up there compared to normal. They will be a few degrees on the higher side of average. We're looking at about 85 to 90 degrees across much of Texas and eastern Oklahoma, which is going to be the main area that we're dealing with the storms for today. And then if we look at for tomorrow, you can see it's a little bit chillier. We're more into the 70s for this area right here, but eastern Texas getting in on some of these 80s. So temperatures are going to be warm enough to support some of these thunderstorms. And if we look at the dew points as well, we're looking at dew points up into the upper 60s or even the low 70s for both today and tomorrow. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. If you have any questions or you want a personal forecast, just leave a comment down below and I'll respond within a few hours of you posting that. That is going to wrap it up for today's video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.